Here's the thing. Victory in air and missile fights doesn't ride on any one jet or missile anymore. And that shift hit a real milestone on June 17, 2026, when the Air Force handed full-rate production contracts to Anduril and General Atomics for the first operational collaborative combat aircraft. They're buying well over 150 of these AI-flown drones that'll fly alongside manned fighters by 2029. No pilot on board, just this autonomy government reference architecture that lets the military swap the brains between airframes whenever they want. The real weapon now is the network tying everything together, not the individual platforms. For years, the service is obsessed over speed, stealth, range, payload, the usual checklist. A faster fighter or a missile that could reach farther felt like the obvious edge. That math stopped working somewhere along the way. An older missile getting fresh updates from satellites and ground sensors can beat a brand new hypersonic weapon that launches blind. The rocket motors themselves have pretty much hit their physical limits inside any given airframe. What actually decides things is how fast one side can pull data from every sensor it has, stitch it into something usable, and hand a target to whatever shooter happens to be in range before the other side even finishes thinking. Colonel John Boyd saw this pattern back in the 50s. He studied why F-86 pilots kept beating MiG-15s even when the Russian jets looked better on paper. Earned himself the nickname 42nd Boyd at Nellis by betting he could gun down any opponent in simulated combat inside 40 seconds flat. Turned out the Saber's hydraulic controls and bigger canopy gave pilots quicker reactions and a better sense of what was happening around them. Boyd boiled it down to the OODA Loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Whoever cycles through it faster basically freezes the other side out. The whole thing used to take minutes or longer. Now it's seconds. But that speed creates its own problem. When the machine spits out targeting suggestions faster than anyone can double-check them, people just go along with it. That's automation bias, and it's the flip side of the network speed. That idea has scaled way beyond single dogfights. AI now handles most of the observing and orienting. Sensor fusion software chews through radar, infrared, electro-optical feeds, tags threats, matches them to available weapons, and spits out a short list for the human to pick from. Commanders jump straight to decide and act. You can already see it working in the systems that exist. Maven Smart System pulls from 179 different sources and serves over 20,000 users across US and NATO forces. It leans on computer vision and language models to spot targets automatically. Ukraine's Delta pulls together 400 different drone types, plus commercial satellites, and NATO Link 16 data into one shared picture. The Russians fielded Glaz and Groza to do something similar. Glaz grabs coordinates from commercial drones. Groza figures out the ballistics and pushes firing solutions to artillery. Both sides have shown that software running at the edge can shrink the kill chain from hours down to minutes. The side that fuses information fastest keeps the initiative, even if the individual platforms are roughly even. All of that meets up in low Earth orbit with the Space Development Agency's Tranche 1 constellation. One constellation 126 transport layer satellites talking to each other through optical links, plus 35 tracking layer birds with wide-field infrared sensors meant to catch hypersonic glide vehicles early. An Army unit on the ground can now get a targeting cue straight from space and hand it off to a Navy destroyer without going through vulnerable ground stations. This didn't just happen by accident. It needed a few technical pieces that only really came together in the last 10 years or so. Gallium nitride chips give 5 to 10 times the power density of the old gallium arsenide stuff, so the same antenna can push more energy without cooking itself. That's basically double detection ranges against stealthy targets. Edge processors do the heavy lifting right on the aircraft, so only small metadata packets go over the data links. Raw video and radar data stays local, which cuts latency and makes jamming harder. That same connectedness creates new weak spots, though. Every extra sensor, every new data link, every added satellite widens the attack surface. Cut the connections, and you can paralyze the whole thing without knocking down a single aircraft. Both sides of the Pacific are clearly thinking about that now. The network ends up working like an automated tactical marketplace. An F-35 spots a surface-to-air site but has already used its own weapons. The system checks who's closest, what they're carrying, and whether the airspace is clear, then assigns the shot to a destroyer or an Army missile battery. The pilot never even has to see the effector. The jet is just another sensor node at that point. Modern fighters have moved past single sensor displays. The F-35 runs a central fusion engine that pulls data across the whole spectrum. Its ANAQ-37 distributed aperture system uses 6 infrared cameras flush with the skin to give the pilot a full 360-degree view that tracks aircraft and incoming missiles automatically. That picture merges with the ANAQ-40 electro-optical targeting system and the active electronically scanned array radar. Everything shows up as one common operating picture on the panoramic cockpit display. The pilot sees the verified threats, not the raw sensor garbage. That stuff rides low-probability links like MADL or Link 16. Everything gets quicker and a lot harder to jam. The jet stops being just eyes and starts being both eyes and brain at once. The real advantage shows up right at the edge, where the aircraft actually is. Instead of blasting raw radar video or sensor streams all the way back to some distant server, the platform chews through the data itself and only pushes forward the bits that matter. Where the target is, how fast it's moving, what the system thinks it is. Gallium nitride is what actually makes the hardware keep up. The old gallium arsenide stuff couldn't push as much power through the same space without cooking itself. GaN manages 5 to 10 times the power density, which means an AEC the size of a dinner plate can now throw a lot more energy without melting. That doubles the range against stealthy targets and sharpens the picture. Another 35 birds carry wide-field infrared sensors that can spot a hypersonic boost plume from space. An Army Titan station can grab that track and hand it straight to a Navy destroyer's missiles. No terrestrial node has to stay alive for the handoff to work. For the whole thing to work across oceans, you need a backbone that doesn't care about line of sight or friendly territory. That's where the Space Development Agency's proliferated architecture comes in. Low Earth orbit, Tranche 1 with 126 transport satellites talking to each other through laser links so data moves at light speed without touching the ground. Here's the thing though, the technical side is only half the story. The US is trying to build this automated matching system under CJADC2, where any sensor can talk to any shooter without asking permission from a single service first. Sense, understand, act. You see it in the APG-85 going on to F-35 Block 4 and in India's Netra early warning planes. The same material now ties Chinese mining decisions straight to American production timelines. They hold something like 68% of the gallium reserves, 90% of the refining, and basically all the final production. Those 2023 export rules, tightened again in 2024, created a real bottleneck. One country can slow down entire radar programs just by sitting on the raw stuff. The Air Force's ABMs and the Common Tactical Edge Network are supposed to make that plumbing real. The Army runs Project Convergence to test it, and the Navy's Project Overmatch is doing the same for ships at sea. They've already shown some of it in those capstone exercises out in the Pacific. China watched the same Gulf War footage we did and came to a different conclusion. They decided the network itself is the target. System destruction warfare isn't about sinking every ship or shooting down every plane. It's about cutting the wires between them so the whole thing stops making sense. Hit the early warning aircraft, the satellites, the regional hubs. Create enough confusion that decisions freeze before the shooting even starts. That's why they stood up the Information Support Force in April 2024, pulling resources out of the old Strategic Support Force and focusing hard on network dominance and multi-domain precision strikes. The contrast feels pretty stark when you lay it out. One side is building a giant automatic marketplace that pairs whatever sees something with whatever can shoot at it. The other side is building the tools to blind that marketplace by going after the connections. Automation bias is where the human piece starts to feel especially brittle. When the machine spits out a targeting recommendation faster than anyone can double-check it, people tend to just go with it. Both sides seem to agree on one point though. Once the network becomes the actual weapon, the side that keeps its links alive under jamming and keeps thinking clearly when everything is moving fast probably wins. The hardware limits what the doctrine can do, and the doctrine keeps pushing the hardware to do more. It's all tangled together now. The same setup that gives you this speed also opens up a whole new set of weak spots that older planners never really had to worry about. Every extra sensor, every new date link, every satellite you add just makes the target bigger. An adversary doesn't need to blow up a jet or sink a ship anymore, they just have to cut the threads that tie everything together. Once those threads are gone, the whole thing can freeze up even if every platform is still intact. There's research on this, and it makes sense when you've ever been in a high-pressure situation yourself. The brain picks the quick answer because the slow, careful one isn't an option anymore. Maven's computer vision tools have already shown they can tag a civilian convoy as a missile launcher in simulated runs. Once that label is set, the network's speed carries the mistake straight into a weapons release before anyone can hit pause. The very thing that makes the system lethal also strips away the little bit of friction that used to keep disasters from happening. Terminal human authority still exists on the org chart, but the pressure to stay in the loop with the machines usually wins out in practice. Space adds its own hard limit that doesn't care about budgets or policy. Those low Earth orbit satellites the SDA is putting up are constantly dragging against the atmosphere, so they're always falling out of orbit. Keeping thousands of them working means you're basically launching replacements non-stop. The Golden Dome missile defense numbers already show the low-end estimate at $185 billion by 2035. But once you factor in real replenishment, some projections jump to between 1.2 and 3.6 trillion over 20 years. Physics doesn't negotiate with spreadsheets. The gallium problem is a different flavor of the same issue. We already know how concentrated that supply chain is. China's sitting on most of the reserves and nearly all the refining capacity. Those 2023 and 2024 export moves didn't just raise costs. They put actual brakes on radar production timelines. You can design the fanciest ASA in the world, but if the material for the modules dries up, the whole advantage evaporates. All of this pushes the fight toward what people are calling liquid warfare. Traditional massed formations just turn into easy targets. The second drones, AI, and long-range precision weapons all link up. Units have to stay spread out, stay quiet on the spectrum, and still somehow coordinate through whatever resilient nodes survive. That said, the whole thing ends up where speed and fragility grow together. The same network that squeezes decisions down to seconds also creates these brittle single points that older systems never had to worry about. The economic side of this just locks everything in tighter. Defense spending has flipped from paying for fancy hardware to paying for the software that runs it all. Palantir landing that 10-year, $10 billion deal with the Army shows how the power has shifted. The old hardware companies are now basically working for the software outfits that control the data standards. When Palantir took the prime contractor spot on that $178.4 million Titan ground station contract back in March 2024 with Northrop Grumman as the subcontractor, it felt like a real marker. Owning how the information flows now matters more than building the actual jet or radar. There's no front line anymore in the old sense. It's wherever the electromagnetic spectrum is being contested. Any clump of people or vehicles gets spotted and hit almost immediately, so survival means constant movement, strict emissions discipline, and leaning hard on cheap attritable systems to soak up attention while the real shooters work from over the horizon. The network doesn't just enable the fight, it dictates the shape of it. Gallium shortages, satellites constantly falling out of orbit, automation bias creeping in, and the huge electromagnetic attack surface all feed off each other. Hit any one of them hard enough, and the rest starts to unravel. Both sides' doctrine has adjusted around guarding or breaking these exact weak spots instead of just blowing up platforms. The network itself is the real weapon now. An older missile getting fresh updates from low Earth orbit satellites and F-35 sensors will probably do more damage than a brand new hypersonic weapon fired without that constant picture. The network and its limits are what future fights will actually look like. Liquid warfare already means no neat front line anymore. Any big concentration of forces gets picked up by the sensor web and hit fast, so units stay spread out, stay quiet electronically, and lean on cheap autonomous systems to draw fire, while the real coordination happens from far away. The electromagnetic spectrum itself has become the battlefield. Whoever controls it decides whether the whole network holds together or falls apart under pressure. Agentic AI is the next step that feels both exciting and a little unnerving. Right now, humans still have the final say on lethal shots, but the coming generation of language models plugged into secure networks will let commanders describe what they want in plain words and let the system handle the details. routing supplies, shifting electronic warfare frequencies, or directing drone swarms without someone micromanaging every move. Russia is already talking about adding similar models to their platform GNS setup, and the US is working comparable tools into the Maven Smart System. The line between suggestion and the machine just doing it keeps moving. Every step makes things faster, but it also pushes human intent further away from what actually happens. Anyway, once you see it all together, modern air and missile warfare stops being about which plane or missile is better on paper. It becomes a race between how fast each side can turn information into action. The winner is the one that pulls data from every sensor in every domain, makes sense of it at machine speed, hands the right target to whatever shooter is available, and keeps functioning even when someone is jamming the links. Supply chains for gallium, the realities of keeping satellites in orbit, and the human tendency to trust the algorithm too quickly have all turned into strategic factors on the same level as thrust or warhead size. The doctrines from both Washington and Beijing are already built around defending or attacking these dependencies rather than just trading shots with platforms. This shift has one clear downside that worries me more than the tech itself. Compressing decisions down to seconds takes away the breathing room political leaders used to have for talking things through or double-checking what the other side actually meant. When both sides' algorithms are opaque and reacting to each other, the chance of a flash war from a misread defensive move feels uncomfortably real. Speed gives the edge, but it also removes the small delays that used to keep small mistakes from turning into something bigger. So the takeaway is pretty straightforward. Whatever happens next in the Indo-Pacific or anywhere else will be judged by how well one side keeps its data moving under attack, whether its gallium-dependent radars stay up, and whether the people in the loop can push back against machine recommendations when everything is moving too fast. Those questions matter more now than how many aircraft or missiles either side has on the books. The old platform-focused way of thinking is done. The network era is already here.